was the Alta. I'm on this thing. You know what? I don't know. How else did it go for the rest of
I was just curious.
I'm guessing that they bought the property with it, but I'm not sure. All I know is they sent it to me. And I said, no. I'm curious.
Well, that's all I need. So I'll let you know if I figure it out. Thanks, Ryder.
Sorry, I had a
No, you're all right. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it'll be a camp.
earlier.
Yeah.
But the 24 was because I had Trying to avoid
It's 4 o'clock. I'll call the Columbia Municipal Planning Commission meeting to order. We'll start with a roll call.
Councilman Coleman,
Here.
Dr. Martin,
Here.
Mayor Mulder,
Here.
Mr. Shannon, Mr. Sloan,
Here.
Ms. Williams,
Here.
Mr. Goetz.
Present. We have a quorum present. I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. Looks like we have a pretty good crowd. We've got a pretty good agenda. Kind of the rules of conduct. There was a sign-up sheet outside. If there's any item that you're concerned about or have anything to speak on, sign up out front. When we get to that item, I'll be notified of the people that have signed up. I'll call you forward. You state your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak your concerns on those items. Next, we got the acknowledgement of the official communications of the Columbia City Council on annexation and zoning.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So you did have a few items at the council meeting to discuss or to review here. You had the final and second consideration on multiple rezonings from CD3 to CD4. Those properties include the corner of West 12th and Haley Street, 1209 Galloway Street, as well as 815 Woodside Street. Additionally, council also reviewed the first consideration for the master plan of the commercial park parcel there at Nashville Highway and Honey Farm. Include a rezoning at 1201 Maple Ash Avenue from a CD2 to a civic district. And lastly, there was a master plan request and zoning at 806 and 812 Nashville Highway, being the Columbia Power and Water plant expansion there. All of those did pass on first consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Keltner. Any questions, Mr. Keltner? See none. Next, we have the approval of minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes to approve and review, so I'll start with the first ones, which was from our May 8th general meeting. The minutes are in your packets to review, and I'll make a motion to approve the May 8th meeting minutes.
Second.
I have a second by Dr. Martin. Any discussion on those? We'll call the vote.
Councilman Coleman,
Aye.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Mayor Mulder,
Aye.
Mr. Sloan,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Goetz.
Aye. Those minutes are approved. Next set of minutes would be from our June 5th special called meeting pertaining to the text amendments to the ordinance. I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
With a second by Mr. Coleman. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
Councilman Coleman,
Aye.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Mayor Mulder,
Aye.
Mr. Sloan,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Goetz.
Aye. Those minutes have approved. And the last minutes was from our June 12th regular scheduled meeting. And those are attached as well. And equally, I'll make a motion to approve those.
Second.
With a second by Dr. Martin. No further discussion. We'll call the vote on those.
Councilman Coleman,
Aye.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Mayor Mulder,
Aye.
Mr. Sloan,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Goetz.
Aye. And those minutes are approved. Next is going to be the review of bonds and letters of credit.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. All letters of credit are in order or in the process of being up.
Thank you for the update. We have a few items on our consent tonight. It looks like we have 5 items. I'll read through the headline of those 5 items. If anybody would see any reason to pull those out for further discussion, please note, and we can do so. Item 1 for consent is going to be the request from Alan O'Leary for final plat approval with surety in the amount of $290,000 for Williamsport Landing Phase 2, consisting of 33 lots off Rockwell and Williamsport Landings at tax map 88, parcel 5105. Item number 2 in our consent is going to be request from T-Square Engineering for final plat approval with surety in the amount of $260,000 for Summit at Carter Station Phase 4, consisting of 35 lots at tax map 42, parcel 35 off Cleburne Road. Third item is request from T-Square Engineering for final plat approval with surety in the amount of $435,000 for Summit at Carter's West Phase 1B, consisting of 29 lots at tax map 41, parcel 15.50 off Cleburne Road. Number 4 is request from T-Square Engineering for final plat approval with surety in the amount of $470,000 of Summit at Carter's West Phase 2, consisting of 36 lots at tax map 41, parcel 15.50 off Cleburne Road. And number 5 is a request from T-Square Engineering for final plat approval with surety in the amount of $220,000 for Independence at Carter Station Phase 6.5, consisting of 40 lots off Tucker Trace at tax map 41, parcel 46.07. Anyone have any concerns? I want to pull any of those out for further discussion. Seeing no one commenting, I will make a motion to approve, subject to all technical comments.
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Williams. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
Councilman Coleman,
Aye.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Mayor Mulder,
Aye.
Mr. Sloan,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Goetz.
Aye. Consent items are approved. This brings us to our discussion items. Our first item for discussion tonight is going to be a request from T-Square Engineering for final plat approval with surety in the amount of $210,000 for Quail Run Meadows Phase 4, consists of 34 lots and open spaces at tax map 73, parcel 17.03, located off Quail Run Way.
Yes, sir. This is an item that would ordinarily appear on your consent agenda. It's a final plat to actually do the division of property after you've already approved the preliminary plat and the developer has put in the infrastructure and prepared the site. There were a couple of minor changes from the preliminary that I wanted to make sure that you were aware of before you voted on it. It's nothing too significant or concerning. It just is a difference, slight difference from the preliminary that you approved. So you can see the change in phasing that's highlighted at the top, and then this run of lots. Let me see if I can call that out. There's a run of lots right in here that have a deeper public utility and drainage easement across the front that's 1 foot greater than the setback. So the homes that are built there will be set back a little bit further. The applicant has noted that on the plat, so it'll be, when it's recorded, it'll, all buyers of the property will be on notice of that. And then there's a larger PUDE that goes between the lots on the left side of the page that wasn't shown in the preliminary. Those are the only differences. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of them before you voted on it.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. And Ms. Crowell, I believe you're aware of those, and applicants noted the such. Dr. Martin.
Just a quick question for, the things that you just brought out, is that the 1066 to 1071, the setback?
Yes, ma'am. On those lots, there's just 1 foot. The PUDE is 1 foot greater than it would ordinarily be, so it means that the minimum building setback is a little bit less than the PUDE.
I just want to make sure that my notes were reflecting what you were talking about. Thank you.
Any other questions? With that being said, and the applicant noting that the comments from Mr. McCarthy, I'll make a motion to approve, subject to all staff technical comments.
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Coleman. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
Councilman Coleman,
Aye.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Mayor Mulder,
Aye.
Mr. Sloan,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Goetz.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item for discussion tonight is going to be request from T-Square Engineering for final plan unit for final plan unit development, master plan, and preliminary plat approval for Old Zion subdivision consisting of 765 lots off Trotwood Avenue.
Yes, sir. This is the final PUD master plan for a development near Ridley Park that was approved last summer. It had a long journey to preliminary PUD master plan approval. It was one of the last big developments approved under our previous zoning ordinance. The preliminary PUD established the general layout of the development and how it would function, the density, intensity of development, the layout of streets, the civic space, the buffers, the protection for compatibility with adjacent neighborhoods, off-site improvements, a lot of commitments from the developer. This stage is the final PUD master plan where they're showing you some greater detail and fixing in place those entitlements. It's also the preliminary plat, which will allow them to move forward with preparation of the site, grading, installation of infrastructure, et cetera, that will later, they'll come in phases for the final plat and the actual creation of the lots. There are some changes from the preliminary PUD master plan. So the question before you today is whether the final PUD master plan in front of you is in substantial compliance with the preliminary, and then for the preliminary plat, that the plat matches the PUD master plan and adheres to the subdivision regulations. The original PUD master plan, the preliminary PUD master plan, which is shown on the right side here, had a cul-de-sac in that sort of plan northwest section. There was a determination that the wetland above it was larger than previously thought, which meant they had to eliminate that cul-de-sac. That caused them to shift some lots around. And where there is a 400-foot buffer between the proposed development and the adjacent existing development, which is in the county, they've located some of those lots sort of adjacent to that buffer. And then there's also been some reduction, some movement of lots around to avoid the use of sort of excessive retaining walls. There's also a notation here that closer to the park in the northern section of the property, there was a run of lots that are highlighted in red there, that the ones in the middle can't be accessed on all sides from a public right-of-way by a fire apparatus, and they won't use an alley. So that it has to be from the actual street. So the applicant has shown those as being sprinkled. Those units would be sprinkled, and that would be noted on the plat going forward in order to meet the fire marshal's requirements for either the alternative, either access to the property on all sides within 150 feet of a right-of-way, or to sprinkle those units. Then also there's showing of the berm and buffer that was required at preliminary plat with supplemental plantings. And staff recommendation you'd see in the staff report is to condition any approval on the phasing of that to be sort of one step ahead of the final plats for each phase, so that as development occurs around that existing neighborhood, the berm and the buffer go ahead of it. And also, you can see the phasing plan here. It's, I believe, a 10-year build-out. The amenities are in what's shown as 1C here, and the staff recommendation is that any approval be conditioned on the amenities being in place by the time of the 300th certificate of occupancy. And you can see again here part of that phasing plan. So I've already mentioned the staff suggestions for the buffer moving ahead of the development. The traffic improvements need to match everything that was in the preliminary PUD master plan approval, which the applicant has agreed to. It's just we want to make sure that that is memorialized in the final PUD master plan approval. The supplemental landscaping needs to be provided in the enhanced buffer around the existing neighborhood. And also, if you recall, at the northern section of this, there's dedication of parkland. It was unclear where that is in the phasing, and our recommendation would be that it be dedicated in the first final plat, which it would be a little bit weird because it's not exactly contiguous with what they're showing now as for their phase 1A. We just want to make sure that was part of the commitment from the developer at the time preliminary approval. We want to make sure that that gets done sooner than later. Mr. Brass, is there anything you wanted to add to that? That's right. So those are the lots that are shown. Well, you can see it here, and let's see. Some of them are grayed out here, but this run of lots right here, and then two of the ones up here at the top, those are the lots that have been moved into what was formerly shown as just all wide open buffer, and that is moving the lots from that eliminated cul-de-sac in the top portion of the development. And Austin and I both worked on this. We're happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. I do believe there'll be some questions. I'm also toggling to some of the people that have signed up. So I think for starters, I'll go to the public that signed up. I believe Mr. Robert Graham is the first on my list here that signed up. So if you comes forward, state your name, address, and then your time will start.
Sure. My name's Robert Graham, 222 Elliott Court, Columbia. You did miss one bullet up there. It said something about traffic preliminaries. I don't know if you have any information on that when he was reading them
Yeah, he
off.
mentioned that the traffic would have to be done on the front end was his comment about the traffic. So
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, our concerns are amplified considering community leaders estimate that Murray County and Columbia will see a staggering 14,000 new homes coming in the few years. While we can't halt growth, and we don't want to, we just want to have infrastructure. And that's something that belongs to the planning committee. I guess you got to plan it in there. And while we can't halt growth, it's essential we take some steps to management. And I'm going to take the emotion out of it and just give you numbers. How's that? Take the emotion out of it. With an average of 2 children under 18 per family, 14,000 new homes would translate to approximately 27,160 children. Considering Murray County is currently at capacity with 13,500 students right now, that means more schools must be built. There's no way around it. All right. Furthermore, with an average of 2.2 cars per household in Tennessee, an influx of 14,000 homes would add 30,800 more vehicles to our already congested 1-lane and 2-lane highways. We already have 110,000 vehicles in Murray County. It's frustrating that despite contributing to state funds, we're still unable to secure funding to widen Bear Creek Pike. I understand that's the state's issue more than ours, and I know you've been doing what you can to try to get it into the 10-year plan, but it's still not in there. And then we have water usage. The average family uses about 10 million gallons of water a month, especially if you have teenagers. With 14,000 new homes, this would result in an additional 140 million gallons of water consumed monthly. Just do the numbers. And that's already putting a further strain on the already stressed Duck River. We're over 990 million gallons right now per month. This just raises the question I'm asking. Will the builders, real estate brokers, and banks take responsibility and help us supporting our community's infrastructure needs? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time.
thank you, Mr. Graham. Next on the list is John White.
Mayor, Commissioners, hard to follow. Mainly, I want to talk about Troutwood. And like previously, just in Troutwood, in our development, and what y'all have approved, it's not a secret, between Rutherford, Morgan Meadows, Old Zion, Hunters Glen, Rutherford Village, there's going to be 1,100 and some homes right there. Right there. And that Troutwood in your old Connect Columbia was a D. The new one, it's an E or an F. Where's the improvements? You know, how are we supposed to get to town to even spend our money because you can't. And one of the Columbia connections I think is comical. You wanted to spend 25 grand to study lowering the speed limit from basically Ridley Park to Zion Road, less than 2 miles. And most of 90% of that is a 2-lane or double yellow line, no passing. I mean, you could have put the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit signs up last month. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. We don't have to spend 25 grand for that. And let's go on and fix something else so we can start checking off some of this Troutwood and Columbia problems with their traffic. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Next, we have Doug Chapman.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, fellow members of the commission, thank you very much. Douglas Chapman, 6415 Yateman Lane. I am in here in my individual capacity as a neighbor of Ashwood Manor over there. I would just like to say on behalf of the other members and neighbors who are here with Ashwood Manor, if I can have y'all stand up who were here with me from Ashwood Manor. There is opposition to part of this that's out there that's being proposed. And thank you all. Okay, they just sit down. The part that goes into the zone between the two properties out there, the buffer zone out there, they're looking at moving into that area out there as a part of what's being proposed there. We strongly oppose that at this point in time. That was the plan from the builders as an olive branch, and we appreciate that, and I think it's good to have that in place there. But to go in and change some of that now, I think that would affect us negatively. We've had quite a few neighbors since all this has been happening have moved because of this. We've had neighbors that have come in and moved here from Williamson County because they wanted to get away from all of this in Williamson County that have this now. And I'm not going to say that they're disappointed about moving here, but they're not terribly thrilled about it. So the buffer that's there, let's not affect that. There's a lot of green space in this property. If they need to add those extra spaces in there someplace else, the number's already been approved. Let's find someplace else other than the buffer area to be able to put those. I know you've got a lot of decisions that y'all make with regard to this and a lot of time that y'all spend on things. Greatly appreciate y'all and your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. We also have the applicant, Mr. Nathan McVeigh. Do you want to come forward? Do you want to just be available for questions?
I'll be available for questions.
Thank you. So I do want to just start with a few comments, if I can. Mr. Chapman, I think we had a public letter that was in our comments too. So I just wanted to clarify too, I think one of the concerns you had was about the phasing. And it has A, B, C, and D in semi-phases, but it's still kind of a 10-year, I just want to point that out to you that they're.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Got to go back and find where it was. Mr. McCarthy, the question about the sprinkled lots, I believe the comments in the staff report pertain to the applicant could either, I guess, move those lots closer to the road or sprinkle them. I believe if I read it right, the applicant's requesting to sprinkle those. Is there a preference from, I assume that's the right of way that gets to Ridley Park as well. So is that additional buffer kind of nice to have as well instead of moving them closer to that road?
Yes, sir, and that was part of the preliminary PUD master plan approval. I think, well, there's probably a few different solutions. One would be to eliminate those lots. Another would be to bring them closer to the right-of-way. The AHJ, that's basically the fire chief, has the ability to approve these with being sprinkled. And that's the option the applicant has chosen.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if you, Douglas, or anyone, but just kind of reiterate maybe just to refresh our memory too on what the traffic updates that have to be done. If I'm remembering correctly, they have to be done before phase one, before the first phase. Is that correct?
Douglas can speak best to that. Yeah.
So there are a number of improvements. It would take quite a while to list all of them, but yes, some of them are due precede the development, precede the zero lot, so the first final plat. The applicant did supply an addendum to the commitment letter that outlines the phasing of all of those improvements. The improvements that would precede the development, the improvements at the site access 1, that's their main entrance, the addition of those lanes, and the traffic signal. The Trotwood Avenue improvements for the shoulder, the Trotwood Avenue at Zion Road, the addition of the traffic signal there serving the intersection of Zion Road and Polk Lane at Trotwood Avenue. Those are the developments that would precede any final plat. There are a number of additional improvements as well.
And just to maybe kind of comment on, I believe it was Mr. Graham's comment, did the traffic report indicate with these improvements that are having to be made any lowering or lessening of the rating of that road?
So the traffic study itself does not address the speed limit. So in order to lower speed limit on a roadway, in accordance with the MUTCD and AASHTO standards, a speed study has to be conducted. And in order to make a justification to lower that speed, there's certain warrants that have to be met based on the prevailing speed of the existing traffic volume. There are then additional engineering judgments that can be made on top of that based on safety and other sort of site-specific conditions that would provide justification for the lowering of that speed limit. But it is a requirement that a speed study be conducted in order to lower the speed limit.
I think my question might have been more towards the I don't know what it's called, the risk rating, the ABC class.
Oh, the class, excuse me. So the rating, the rating that was done with the Connect Columbia plan in I think they probably analyzed it around 2016. We have not. That was a corridor-wide analysis. We've not analyzed on a corridor-wide scale any of the roadway in that term. Each individual intersection is analyzed as part of the traffic impact study, and then those improvements are assigned to that intersection to maintain that level of service and mitigate the impacts that the development would have.
Thank you. And Mr. McCarthy, just to make sure I understand this right, this preliminary PUD was previously approved, so there's certain rights associated with it. Our job here tonight is making sure that the final PUD that they're presenting here conforms to the preliminary in a material manner, I guess.
Yes, sir. Substantial compliance is the term in the zoning ordinance, both the current zoning ordinance and ordinance 3638. The density, intensity, general layout, amenities, offsite improvements have all already been established, and the property owner has an entitlement to develop the property, but it's up to you to determine that this final PUD master plan that they'll use to actually move forward with preparation of the site is in substantial compliance with that approval.
I reviewed the staff report pretty in depth, and there's several things that if I were prepared to make a motion now, that I'm not sure if I could quote them exactly. Is the applicant aware of all of the recommendations for the phasings and all that stuff that the staff report addresses in the report? And Mr. McVeigh, I think you're here as well. So.
Yeah, good evening. Nathan McVeigh with T-Score Engineering. So to answer your question on the phasings, yes. And we're good with the berms and when those are going to be constructed, per how they're laid out in the staff report. The timing of the park dedication, we would request it to be in phase 1B. We'd like to ensure that phase 1A is final platted and the kind of the projects off the ground and moving forward. But I think we'd be amenable to making that dedication done in 1B. And then the amenity being done by the 300 CO is also, it fits the timeline as well.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy, was the dedication of the park, I mean, I understand that was wanted to do before the first phase, and I assume that meant first phase A, any phase, it would be, my assumption is what the request was. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We were looking for it to be with the first final plat, but the timeline they had, I assume these dates will roll forward probably at least a year. So they're showing phase 1B to be November of 25. That I expect it'll probably end up being November of 26 or thereabout.
Yeah, and the parks probably want to go ahead and get started on whatever. I assume the wanting to get that first and foremost is kind of let the park start on putting in whatever improvements it wants to make in that phase. So.
Right, and who knows what the future holds for this development or for, this part of Columbia, just to make sure that commitment that was made is the city receives that benefit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I'm ready to make a motion. Can I can make a conditional motion? I want to make a motion considering the first and foremost that the preliminary was approved, so we're looking at just whether it conforms. I'm struggling with it entirely conforming, primarily on the premise that these 9 lots are encroaching into the previously promised buffer. So what I want to make a motion of is to approve the plan presented tonight, subject to the removal of those 9 lots that encroach the buffer. Those are identified, if I've identified these correctly, as 595, 596, 597, 598, 507, 508, 509, 506, and 501. I also want to make that motion conditioned on the timing of the traffic that's already seems to be implemented that we're all in agreement upon, and that the buffers that staff has recommended, the timing of those be achieved as recommended by staff for the phasings of all those. And the dedication, everything that staff recommended from the phasing, dedication of the park, dedication of the 300th permit for the, everything is recommended by staff in the staff report. It's a lot for me to try to reiterate, but you've read it and are aware of it. So I hope I addressed everything correctly. And
Mr. Chair, may I make a question?
Sure.
Would you be amenable to us changing the ratio of lot sizes to account for the reduction or for losing those 9 lots? We'd like to keep the same amount of lots over the whole entire project. So we'd like to, maybe in some areas that are more interior, shrink some of the largers, make them, smaller, just to pick up those 9. And we could do that with staff at
I'm
final
going to be
plat.
honest with you. I'm not too privy to that because we were promised, a certain number of 75-foot wide lots, 100-foot wide lots, 60-foot wide lots. My motion is removing, I think of those 9 lots, as 2 of those are 100-foot wide lots and
The rest are 75s.
7 of those are 75-foot
Yes,
wide
sir.
lots.
We need a second before we.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. We have a second by Dr. Martin? Okay. So I have a second by Dr. Martin. We open it up for discussion. I think I've asked the question that Mr. McVeigh had. Mr. Coleman?
Well, I just want to clarify. So we're when you made your motion, Chairman, would that have just been subject to technical comments, or?
Yes, and acceptable in all other staff comments, technical comments.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure it was one of the
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, I was just going to say a couple things. First of all, thank you, Mr. Goetz, for exercising the leadership of putting that in the form of a motion, because I know that's not easy to make a motion that has some complexities to it. When I first saw this, though, I have to say I had to read it twice just to make sure I could. I was reading what I thought I was reading because I was a little surprised, frankly, that y'all would have, after all that we went through, and understanding, the conversations that were had with the Ashwood Manor folks, and how we sort of got to a point where we knew that y'all weren't going to be completely happy with the outcome, and that they weren't going to be completely happy with the outcome, but that probably represented a pretty good outcome, and that you'd come back now that would sort of eat into that buffer that we were trying to protect from the very beginning. I frankly think that the only thing worse probably would have been trying to get more density. So the good thing is that you weren't seeking more density than what was in the original plan. You were just changing some things around that did have the impact on the buffer. And so that's why I support the motion, because I do think that this still remains a good project. I am looking forward to the parkland dedication and to the trails and to the buffers and to the traffic improvements that will be had on Trotwood and the phases in which that will all happen. But I just cannot support taking away that buffer that we really fought really hard to make sure was there for the benefit of all. So for those reasons, I support the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Dr. Martin?
Yeah, for all the reasons that the mayor has said and for that eloquent motion that our chairman made, I'm certainly supporting this. I've just got one question. I had some notes here that I pulled from the documents, the major documents that we received, that said some models may be too big for lots, increased size of wetland, and 9 lots in the previous open space. So is this the 9 that we're talking about now?
Yes, ma'am.
And we're asking by motion to not do them, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So that'll get my star. Okay, also, the parkland, that's, it's redone in here, but is it in the phase where it was at first?
My motion was to have the parkland dedication as requested by staff, which would be before the first phase.
Before the first phase?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am. But you did bring up a good point that I do think maybe needs for discussion, would be about the concern that staff had about some of the elevations kind of being really, really tight to the lot sizes. Is that concerns that staff can address on building permits, or is that a concern that we need to try to address here tonight?
I mean, I don't know that you have authority really to do much about it. It was an advisory comment to the applicant, and it is something that comes up frequently. If you want to just note it for bigger picture conversations, because you establish lots with minimum building setbacks, and then when the actual structures on them are built exactly with like 0 inches of margin to the minimum building setback, it makes Mr. Archibald's job much more difficult to confirm that they're adhering to those setbacks a couple of years from now when they're actually pulling building permit.
Okay. So it's really just a concern to note, nothing that can technically be addressed.
Yeah, I mean, I had hoped that through the DRC process that they might change some of the elevations so that all the models would fit with a few inches or a couple feet maybe of margin, but they noted the comment and moved forward with what they proposed.
Okay. Just to, I guess just to be clear now at this point, I hope maybe for staff's perspective and everything that my motion was clear. Did I try to speak it as best I could as far as staff's concerns? And
yeah, and I think that the critical thing is just to make sure staff understands it and that the developer understands what's requested of him. And as long as those two parties understand it, I think it's well stated.
Okay, thank you.
My only clarification is the parkland dedication, are you wanting it in phase 1A or 1B?
I'm wanting it as requested by staff, which was before the first phase, which would be phase 1A, I believe was the request. So, yes. Okay. Thank you. Any further discussions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
Councilman Coleman,
Aye.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Mayor Mulder,
Aye.
Mr. Sloan,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Goetz.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Next item on our agenda tonight is going to be, I will allow a minute if everybody from the crowd here on that one wants to exit. Next item tonight's item 3, request from Crunk Engineering for revision of a final PUD master plan and preliminary plat approval for landings at Greens Mill Road located at tax map 51, parcel 55, consisting of 550 residential lots. The prior approval implements a plan unit development approved under ordinance 3638 the previous zoning ordinance.
Appreciate it, Mr. Goetz. This was a previously approved preliminary plat under the previous zoning code as an RS10 planned unit development. It received preliminary approval in 2021 with a final PUD master plan approval in 2022. The construction plans did come before staff, and upon review of those construction plans for the first phase, it was noted by staff that the final PUD master plan did not match the construction plans that we had. Therefore, it was requested that the applicant come back before this commission for a revised final PUD master plan and a preliminary plat. Significantly, changes within this final PUD master plan include the street orientation. As you recall, there's a spine road that goes from the north end of the development site at Greensmill Road that connects with the south end of the development site at Double Branch Road. And on the right here on the screen, you can see that street orientation includes a block formation and additional lots that go all the way down to Double Branch Road. On the right, this is the revision that we are looking at today. It eliminates all of those lots. Staff in coordination with the wastewater department did feel like this was a win-win because there were 13 lots that were proposed to be on grinder pumps. And post this approval, wastewater did approve an ordinance that did not allow grinder pumps in the city because those are hassles in the future for homeowners to work with. So those lots have been eliminated. Therefore, the grinder pump issue has been removed. If we go on to the next slide, you can see these are some of the changes again. The image on the right shows some open space areas that have been filled in with additional lots. Would like to note that the density here is not changing. It was 550 lots that were approved, and this is also 550 lots. However, it does reorientate some of those lots. And so, as you can see here, there is an open space that is interior to the site that's being filled in with lots. Likewise, on the previous screen, those lots have been removed and are also being replaced with open space. The only concern that staff did have was under the previous code, unfortunately, it wasn't as sophisticated as our new code where we really delved deep into what these open spaces are. In discussion with the engineer of record, we would like to note what the new proposed open spaces are specifically going to be. In discussion with the applicant, we did put a condition on this that we have more specification about what the open spaces are. I say that because under the previous code, when this was adopted, it wasn't as specified. And so I feel like this is, again, another opportunity for us to get more specific about what those open spaces might be. In conclusion, staff does support this with the noted conditions that we get more specific, again, about the open spaces.
Thank you, Mr. Brass. I believe the applicant has signed up as well, Mr. Carroll, if I'm, Patrick Carroll, yeah.
It was only just answering any questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brass, just to be clear on the concerns about the open space and our new ordinance and kind of the more defined layout that it has for that. Did the applicant express that they could get that to you pretty quickly? And I asked that question because I'm wondering if a deferral would be right to kind of have that so we can see it.
So I would prefer the applicant approach the commission to discuss that.
Sure.
In speaking with him, it was noted that there was intention to do, I believe it was walking trails and things of that nature in the open space. However, it just wasn't shown on that preliminary PUD plan. Therefore, staff was at the pearl to not ask them to add it to this new final, PUD plan because they're vested to that. Of course, they are bringing y'all a revision, so this is an opportunity to get more clarity of what that open space is truly going to be.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll, I will call you forward on that. And so just, I'm going to make a statement. I understand the pumps having to be removed, and so that changed to the lots. But, addressing the concerns about the open space and what that's going to be, is that something you can address pretty quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have I sent Austin a plan set this morning
that outlines more open space or usable open space in this scenario, specifically in phase 2, because the entire site's pretty much surrounded by Rutherford Creek, and the intent really was to, make that, obviously open to any of the residents of the area. But what we have added is pretty much a 5-foot mulch pathway along a portion of it, and that's denoted as a usable open space area. So our plans are up to date. I know, I guess we didn't get it in time for this particular meeting, but we do have it shown now. So from my understanding of the ordinance and everything, we are meeting the specifications of the required amount of usable open space versus just regular open space. So our plans are updated now.
Yeah, but staff just hasn't had time to review that.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
So maybe a question for staff is if this item were deferred, would it allow time to review that before the next month's meeting?
As Mr. Carroll did receive it this morning. As you know, Wednesdays are very busy for us in planning with our pre-application meetings with developers. So I did not have time to sit down and give a good analyzation before this.
I would not have expected that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So again, if that's something the commission wishes to defer, if that's something that.
Just because we didn't have a quorum last month, I mean, this would be the second time.
That's right.
Deferred. I would ask if we could at least ask put a condition on there that because I think before we even had it updated, it was just going to be a condition of approval because it didn't come to our attention. I think until the previous.
That's right. Okay. And I would feel comfortable with that because, again, as Mr. Carroll alluded to, with the preliminary PUD, it just defined the allocated usable open space, which is currently met. But now as staff, we're asking that question, what is that usable open space? We didn't have that again at the preliminary PUD plan. So I feel confident. I mean, if it's something that staff doesn't feel is adequate as usable, certainly we'd recommend it come back before this commission.
Thank you.
So again, I really feel like by bringing this back, it kind of cleans up the item as a housekeeping item to just get more clarity on exactly what's there.
So the rest of it conforms to the initial PUD.
It conforms with the lot layout. Keep in mind, there is some reorientation of street sections that was added. Believe there was a lot of topographic challenges through the site. So it conforms with that. And again, as it was shown on the screen here, there's some interior open spaces that have been filled in with lots. And so under the previous code, those interior open spaces would have been defined as quote unquote usable. However, it wasn't listed what specifically was in that space.
I think maybe it's maybe appropriate to ask the question, but in staff's professional opinion, I understand the reason to get rid of the grinder pumps, but is this improvement with the lot layout of the streets, stuff like that, overall, is it a betterment to the project that was previously? Aside from the knowledge of what the right of way, the green space is going to be, that's conditioned potentially.
I would say it's equal because, I mean, it still meets the goals of having the spine road that connects Greens Mill with Double Branch. The bridge section is still there. Certainly, they're adding more open space. It's just getting the clarity on the usable open space. And then again, I think the most significant one is removing, as you alluded to, those grinder pumps that they were previously vested in with the previous approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Patrick, do you have any details on that space? So when you say a mulch trail, a few things come to my mind. Who's going to maintain the mulch? How wide is the mulch? And then how many linear feet of trail are we talking?
From the last time, just off the top of my head, I don't have numbers in front of me. I think it was close to 1,500 linear feet of mulch pathway. So it was a good section of the river. We're trying to obviously stay in green space, not take out trees, try to keep the area untouched as much as possible because it is essentially like a riverine aquatic area. I mean, really the thought is to use the entire outside perimeter of the site as usable open space, but not improved, essentially, because fishing, canoeing, anything like that, it's a really unique area that I've seen in most developments through Columbia, just because, like I said, it's surrounded by four sides of a river. So the only thing we have done is essentially just tried to comply with the usable open space by providing more of a trailed section. But the mulch pathway is something we, on another project is Summit at Carter Station, we're providing that mulch pathway. It'll be maintained by the HOA. So it's exactly, it's very similar to that.
Okay, thank you.
With this being a PUD, I mean, I know this has come up at times in the past for us to really drill down. I think there was one out Bear Creek Pike where we had the opportunity to really ask for more detail as to what the open space and the amenities that were going to be involved in that. Is that part of what we're talking about here? Is not just open space, and you, as you mentioned, unmaintained kind of just, I assume, just wooded land, you know. So the open space would also outline the amenities, or am I right on? Am I wrong?
I believe that's what he is referring to now from an amenity standpoint. Whereas typically in your new code, you've become, as Austin has alluded to, that you've become much more specific in exactly what that looks like. In 3638, in which they are vested under, it just said an active open space, and it didn't really give a lot of details into what that looked like, especially at the preliminary plat stage. Normally, you would have those details coming in later, and this would be the time to see those at the final.
And being that this is under 3638, it basically just has to conform to that old ordinance as far as the level of those amenities, not what whoever the new ordinance would require.
That is correct, yes, sir. You couldn't place additional things on top of it. You don't have to approve what they're requesting, but you couldn't make it subject to additional or more improvements within that.
Mr. Tischer, I know we had no quorum last month, so does that jeopardize any reason for decision needing to be made in a certain amount of days as far as a deferral or anything like that would go?
Obviously, an applicant is entitled to a decision within a certain period of time. And I do feel like we do owe them a decision. Since this is open space and there are no, quote, amenities, i.e. clubhouse, swimming pool, tennis courts, anything of that nature that we're talking about, that would need to be specifically enumerated, it's going to be just trails, clearly open space. I think the preliminary plat could be, maybe a little more detailed once we get a final plat. So we are doing a final PUD, and so the PUD would not show any more detail, but we could maybe get a little more detail on the final plat.
Thank you, Mr. Tischer.
So then can we make a motion to approve on the premise that when this comes back for final plat approval, that maybe then we would have the opportunity and maybe expectation to see a more detailed plan with regards to the open space?
I don't see a problem.
Yeah, that would be reasonable.
I think that's reasonable.
Mr. McCarthy, I know, on the screen here, we had the conditions were outlined specific. Can we maybe pull that up? What staff recommended? Yeah, so that was it. All right, my apologies in not calling that out. Yeah.
In that case, then I'd make a motion to approve subject to the staff comments and technical conditions.
Yeah, and also, if I may, Mayor Mulder, just read off the other additional conditions just for the record. That roadway connection be made with Double Branch Road after 174 lots. A cul-de-sac at the end of Malice Drive be constructed to permanent standards, and that the blue stem road near Double Branch require a slight change in alignment to avoid a sinkhole. And the last three conditions that I read off were from engineering. Thank you.
Thank you.
So moved.
Make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by the mayor, second by Mr. Coleman. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
Councilman Coleman,
Aye.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Mayor Mosley,
Aye.
Mr. Sloan,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Goetz.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Next item tonight's going to be a request from West Engineers and Surveyors for preliminary plat and site development plan approval for 4 townhome units at 111 East 16th Street.
Yes, sir. While Mr. Brass is getting selected, so this is a request for, here we go, site development plan and preliminary plat.
This is just a parcel. It's currently zoned CD4C. It's an example of infill development. The applicant is proposing 4 townhome units on this site that in front 16th Street. It is noted that the townhomes will have to comply with the CD4 standards for material and bulk standards for the design of the homes. During the review process at DRC, the fire marshal has required that whenever you're utilizing a two-way drive access for the parking at the rear, that there needs to be a turnaround for the apparatus. And so the applicant did add a turnaround. You can kind of see that there on the plat there, so the fire truck can safely maneuver if it needs to go into the parking lot area. With that, the townhome units were, everything was kind of pushed a little bit further back. And you can see underlying that plan are some existing tree canopy that's there. And the zoning code does require, with all site development plans, an analysis of specimen trees based off the diameter of the trunk. And so staff did just note a condition with this approval that any approval is subject to additional review just to ensure that they're truly not specimen trees. Staff did do a drive-by, and it appears that the tree trunks do seem somewhat large. I do have, again, full confidence that the applicant was clear that there was no specimen trees on site. It's just one of those things that there may be one tree that might have been missed. I would like to note that this would still go before the development services for the site construction plans. If it is a caliber heritage tree, that it can be replaced on the site. There is also a 25-foot buffer that's located here because it's CD4C adjacent to a single-family residential use to the left of it that has been shown here. And then staff did grant a minor 3.5-foot exception per the zoning ordinance to allow for the 20-foot driveway to encroach into that buffer. But nevertheless, it still meets the code requirements for the opacity going along the buffer. So staff does recommend approval with that condition regarding the specimen trees.
Mr. Brash, just to be clear on that 25-foot buffer, and you mentioned the 3.5-foot adjustment to that. Is that just a reduction from 25 foot to 21 or so?
No, sir. The 25-foot buffer is still shown. It's just in order to make the 20-foot driveway work, it encroaches 3.5 feet into that buffer. And unfortunately, I mean, it is an infill lot, but they're kind of caught in the CD4C that requires that 25-foot buffer. If it was a straight 4, there would be no buffer there because it thinks of it as a commercial type James Campbell plot there.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I'll make a motion to approve subject to staff's just staff comments or staff's technical comments.
Okay.
A second by Dr. Martin. Any discussion? We'll call the vote.
Councilman Coleman,
Aye.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Mayor Mosley,
Aye.
Mr. Sloan,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Goetz.
Aye.
And
Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I should have mentioned before on that one, this is a site development plan that ordinarily staff would be the decision-making authority for, but every site development plan, every preliminary plat requires a site development plan, and so we referred it to the commission for you to make that decision. That's why it's on your agenda.
Thank you. Next on our item for discussion is going to be item number 5, which is going to be a request from Greg Gamble for preliminary plat and site development plan approval for a mixed-use development comprised of 448 residential units and 36,320 square feet of commercial space located off North North James M. Campbell Boulevard, and Professional Center Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Goetz. This is currently a vacant property. Many of you may know it as being directly at the rear of the Pinewood Health Facility. There's currently 2 existing stub-out roads that go into the property. Historically, we did have a proposal for a single-site facility on this property. However, the applicant now is proposing 444 residential units within a mixed-type development. As you can see here in the site development plan, there is 2 large mixed-use buildings, several large multifamily buildings, and then the smaller buildings represent the small multifamily buildings. The reason why the site is orientated in this way is because the zoning code does not permit the whole entire site to be large multifamily. It allows up to 20% of that, and so they are providing the 20% large multifamily, asking for a very minor exception of 3% to be 23% of that, with the rest of the development site consisting of the 2 mixed-use buildings and small multifamily buildings. There's also a proposed commercial building that will house a daycare facility on the site. Nevertheless, it does meet the zoning ordinance regarding the site orientation with the urban neighborhood street right-of-ways, all parking located in their 3rd layer behind all buildings, and providing the adequate civic spaces. I would like to note that the mixed-use buildings is something that that staff did have additional discussion with the applicant regarding. One thing that we were concerned about is in our zoning code, when we talk about mixed-use buildings, I know we've had this discussion at some of our zoning text amendment meetings, that the current text says a mixed-use building typically has ground floor commercial with residential above, using that word typically, so that's kind of not shall or required. And so staff does feel like the applicant worked well to ensure that all ground floor areas infronting a right-of-way and then infronting a pedestrian path be non-residential. So this diagram here does depict quite well. You can see the 2 bottom corners represent a shop front, with the rest of it being office. And then the green colors going down the pedestrian path represent live-work units. And so simply put, all units that in front some sort of activation are true commercial units. So staff does feel more comfortable with that being a mixed-use building as opposed to just being a large multifamily building with maybe one small commercial component to it. There were several adjustments that the applicant did request from staff that were within the 20% administrative adjustment. Those adjustments really delved into the frontage build-out and lot widths, with an adjustment regarding the window sill height for multifamily. As you're aware, the zoning code requires 5 feet. The applicant's requesting it to be 4 feet. As part of the application submittal with a multifamily site plan, we are required to review the elevations for large and small multifamily. This does comply with the code standards using the required materials of brick and then cemented siding for the additional elevations. It does have a defined base, middle, and cap. And then these are just an example of the small multifamily buildings and what the elevations will look like. They do meet the code standard. And then this is just going back to the mixed-use building that we discussed. One thing we did work with the applicant on is to ensure that each particular commercial unit has a defined shop front or a defined office front per the code. So they do provide a call out showing where the shop front will be for the commercial component and then the office component. Likewise with the live work section down the building. And it is also noted that the shop front does have the required 70% glazing per the code. One other additional thing that we did discuss with the applicant is the concept of these retaining walls. Initially, they did show some significantly large retaining walls in the front. The zoning code limits retaining walls on building sites to be 3 feet in the front, and this just depicts upon the revision that they're showing the retaining walls will be 3 feet. Also, there's a side note here that the retaining walls will be a authentic stucco over masonry material. The zoning code does require retaining walls to have a cladding material, and stucco over masonry is permitted. So if the commission has any additional questions, staff does recommend approval for this multifamily site plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brass. I know we have the applicant that signed up, but we also have a Rob Turner.
I'm here to answer questions.
Okay. And Mr. Dean Montgomery as well. Same. Okay. Mr. Gamble, do you have any?
Hi, my name is Greg Gamble, and I'm representing the applicant tonight, HRP. Dean Montgomery and Rob Turner are with me, and they're both representatives of HRP. One of the things that we've found out about this new zoning ordinance and CD4C is that it really gives you a great platform and a great foundation for truly making place. For a place-making master plan, and making a master plan where residents can access neighborhood commercial uses with convenient pedestrian access and pedestrian connections. I'd like to point out a few items on the master plan. This is our connection here to James Campbell Boulevard. It's our main entrance coming in. This is our hub. This is where the activity takes place. This is where our commercial uses take place on the ground floor at that sidewalk level. Right here's our swimming pool that will offer fitness club room for residents, and directly across the street from that is our 15,000 square foot daycare facility. The request for the slightly longer lot for the daycare facility is that we have to include the overhang for the carport that you drive through when you're dropping the kids off in that total length. So that's why there's an exception for a little bit longer there. Anchoring the other side of our kind of main street through here is a 2.6 acre park. That's an open space park for residents to use. There's a second park to the back. Both of these parks will have playground areas. And then on the other side here, we have a 9.16 acre tree preservation area that will be set aside. There are residential homes that are just to the south of us here. So leaving this 200 to 300 foot swath of tree protection and tree preservation there really felt appropriate on that southern end there. And then we have our second connection back out to James Campbell Boulevard here. So happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Mr. Gamble, just I appreciate the illustrations there. So just as a citizen, I mean, will that commercial space, is the goal to maybe be something that attracts even people that aren't residents to come?
Absolutely. Yes. Would love to see it it's probably going to be more of a neighborhood commercial, but would love to see it really have more of a longer reach.
Yeah. And same with, I assume, the daycare facility. And not that
Yeah.
I mean, it could be open to the general public, or is it more for the residents?
No. Just general public.
General public, gotcha.
Yeah. Now the club space, fitness, swimming pool, really for the residents.
Right, of course. Makes sense. Thank you.
Sure.
I was going to say, I mean, if we're definitely in the market for a community swimming pool. If you'd like
Okay.
to,
I'll mention that.
But I think since I stole the microphone from you, Mr. Chairman, I'm really impressed with what y'all put together. I like hearing the complementary components to the new code and how y'all are able, or the new ordinance, and how y'all are able to sort of adhere to that, and especially for a project this size to have been able to have brought it in a way that needed so few exceptions or variances, and the ones that were needed seemed to make a lot of sense. So job well done to you, Mr. Gamble.
Thank you.
Mr. Gamble, just for clarification, because I do, right before the meeting started, there was some clarification to me when I was reading the, it's 448 residential units?
Yes, that's correct. When we made the initial submittal, it was 444.
Okay.
Then we came back in with the new live work units, and some of the configurations changed slightly, and it did go to 448.
And the same with the commercial.
More commercial square footage. Yes, that's correct.
Increased to 36,320. I just want to make sure that's clear. Okay. And all of the variances that, I guess variances, if you will, that are being requested are within staff's guidelines for staff approvals. Is that my understanding?
Yes, sir. And some of them, I mean, they made logical sense. A lot of them were to do with the curvilinear street sections. When you're doing building widths, and figuring that out, it creates somewhat of a challenge, like Mr. Gamble alluded to with the daycare portico share. And then again, with the window seal height, we've done past precedents on that, allowing to go down to 4 feet. for the multifamily and small multifamily units.
And in general, then the rest of it conforms to the ordinance, conforms to the zone of which it's already zoned, right?
Correct. It's CD4C. So fortunately, as you're aware, before it was GCS, which didn't allow any type of residential there. So with the CD4C acronym, now we're allowing these mixed-use developments to truly come in to allow for the commercial and allow for the multifamily. So staff does feel in terms of, I think overall vision for the city, it's a highest and best use opportunity for this land opposed to what was previously proposed there.
Thank you. Just one more question, and that might be of you, Mr. Brass. Campbell, I'm not sure, but just to kind of what traffic improvements may have to be made for the site.
So I'm going to allude to Mr. Tony on that. One of the unique attributes of the site, though, is, as you're aware, we do require the new code standard street right-of-ways with the sidewalks, parking, street trees, the whole nine. However, if you've been out to the site, there's a professional center drive, and then there's another existing street. So the professional center drive, for example, I believe it's built to a 50-foot right-of-way, so it doesn't conform to our current code standards. But Glenn Harper and Mr. Tony, they've had discussed with the applicant about working with the owner of the site nearest to professional center drive to work to kind of best practice connect those two, because, again, we aren't able to have the existing road that's platted be brought up to the current standard, but get pretty close.
I'll add to that. And if you want me to hand these up, I'm certainly able to. This is Professional Center Drive. It has a left turn in and a right, and a right turn lane already. So this is a 3-lane section here. When we get to our second drive access point, we're going to be adding a right turn lane in and a left turn lane here. So those will be the offsite improvements that really bring both of those intersections to conformance.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Tony, any additions to that?
I will highlight as well, there is a background traffic improvement on James Campbell at Old Williamsport Pike that is part of the Steadfast Hampshire Pike development. So I know there's some concern about turning left at that Professional Center Drive. If there's someone in the median, it's difficult. That is a concern that should be remedied with the improvement from Steadfast as well.
Did it come up in this TIS as well?
It was part of the background condition, so it's an assumption based on the traffic study that was conducted. If that condition were to be removed, then the traffic study would have to be updated. I don't know whether or not that would trigger that particular improvement, because that was not part of the scope of the study. The assumption was that improvement would be in place.
Okay. Any other questions? Dr. Martin?
Just wanted to make a quick comment. So you went a little bit deeper with the traffic concerns, and I appreciate that comment that you just made. And Mayor, you're talking about a municipal pool. I can only speak for Krista Martin that works at Columbia State. We do have a grant for daycare. Daycare is a barrier for our students right now, and so I'm glad that we heard you say that this is going to be for people other than folk that live in the development, because we need it, and we're subsidizing through my office daycare costs. We're paying some daycares $300 a week, so it is a major barrier for people trying to finish their education. So to have one that close at some point to the college is going to be major for us. So we appreciate that part and appreciate the detail on the other items too.
Thank you, Dr. Martin.
So would a motion subject to technical comments and conditions by staff be in order? If so, so move.
Second.
We have a motion by the mayor, and second by Mr. Coleman. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
Councilman Coleman,
Aye.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Mayor Moser,
Aye.
Mr. Sloan,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Goetz.
Aye. Item passes. Thank you. That brings us to other business.
The only thing I would mention is that, so there's a bit of a delay in moving forward with the zoning text amendments y'all recommended in June, but hopefully we'll get those on the August City Council agenda or find some resolution to it. And then we do have plans for y'all to have a joint study session in September. Is that right? No, in August, sorry.
August.
In August, the first Wednesday in August, you have a joint study session, and then the first Wednesday in September, you have another special meeting to consider additional zoning text amendments.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. I just have, so while we have the whole commission here, I may ask a question now about, and I appreciate staff's, the way they're putting together this report now with the staff analysis and the different tabs, but how's the general feeling of that? And I'm just going to speak what my thoughts are on it right now is when I click on the item number, it gives me the people that have voted, but then I have to toggle out and then go into like the staff analysis. So I'm struggling a little bit with having to toggle between the different tabs. And I don't know if I'm the only one, but you know, where the previous one, I know it had several items listed when we would have our item pulled up. But I could at least still open those tabs as separately and have my comments and my notes and stuff all there on that one screen. So I don't know if anybody else is running into that issue or has any concerns, but really just kind of want a thought to see how others feel about. And y'all may all love it this way, and I'm the only one. So please speak freely.
For your chair, so you have to use it probably more aggressively in the moment than we do. I was going to say I liked it, but I can see why that would be problematic for you.
It gets a little hairy having it as a separate item. I think in the past I open up different tabs, like I'll hold down control or open it up in a separate tab. But the problem that I run into, and I ran into this a lot tonight, is loading. Like it'll just sit there and spin. So I downloaded the PDFs separately and it worked better, but that's cumbersome to download that each time.
Yeah.
But it would be great because I think at any given moment, it's almost like we need to be looking at Google Maps or the zoning map and the zoning code and all those things all at once. So you kind of need them all up. So there needs to be an efficient way to do that.
Yeah, I think what I was finding too is as I was struggling and toggling, then it would come back to the home screen and I'd have to scroll down and find the item that I was needing to, to kind of talk about. So I don't know if staff has a preference of compiling it one way or the other. They,
Yeah, that's my fault. It was my preference to do it this way, and I'm looking at both views. So Mr. Tischer now has the public portal open, and Dr. Martin has the board view, and I can see my thinking was for the public portal to clearly organize each round of submittals and then the staff analysis, but I can see how from the board view it's a bit more cluttered. So if you just want to give us direction how you want it to be.
I mean, I don't want to be the sole. I liked it a little bit better the other way when it was all there under each item and could toggle between them. I could right click each item and have a separate tab opened up for it, but I was always at that first screen showing the item and my notes and stuff that I had typed up on it in the board view version. So
I don't know if maybe the file naming convention could sort of do the same thing. Graphically, I do like how that looks. It's easier for me to know what I'm going to.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand why you did it, but I mean, I like it, but I'm not navigating the agenda like how the chair is, so I would defer to him.
Well, if that's what you want us to do, Mr. Chairman, we'll figure out a way to have it clearly distinguish each set of documents and have it all in one tab.
Yeah, that would be helpful for me. I mean, if anybody else has no, then that'd be helpful for me. I appreciate that. Anything in other business?
I just want to say I appreciate innovation amongst city staff, so thank you, Mr. McCarthy, for trying something new. Don't see a lot of that in bureaucracy.
No other business. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. We'll call the vote.
Councilman Coleman.
Aye.
Dr. Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Moser.
Aye.
Mr. Sloan.
Aye.
Ms. Williams. Aye. Mr.